Hello, and welcome to episode number 2 of Fearlessly Moving Forward. We don't move on from grief, we move forward with it. So, as I explained in episode 1, that I am a grief recovery specialist with the grief recovery method. I also am a life coach and an end of life doula. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert at grief, but I know a little about it. I have learned a lot over the last 5 years, especially since my divorce. Anyway, episode number 2, I would like to talk a little bit about what I've learned over the last 5 years. The grief recovery method says that grief is the natural response to any loss. I like to go a little bit further with it. I like to think of grief as a structure. So emotions are like wind. So we have happiness and sadness, and they can come and go, and we can feel happy and sad at the same time sometimes. And grief is a structure. It doesn't ebb and flow. It's just there. And I steal from Elizabeth Gilbert when she talks about fear and creativity. Grief is kind of like a passenger in the car. When you have grief, it is in the car and you want it to be there. I asked a client not too long ago if there was an emotion that he really didn't want to feel. Like, what one emotion did he refuse to feel? Or was he so afraid to feel? And he said, grief. And I kind of disagreed with him, because if we lose something, like a death of somebody that we love, we don't want to be happy. We actually do want to grieve. So we have to let grief be with us. I call it the passenger in the car. We lose something that's important to us. We let grief be the passenger. We just don't want it to drive. We don't want to let grief drive the car. We really don't want it to even fuck with the radio. And when the loss first happens, grief does mess with the radio. It kind of messes up the drive. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's messing with the windows, it's messing up your hair. It's a really obnoxious passenger. But what we want to do is kind of tame the grief as the passenger. Let it ride in the car. Hopefully put it in the back seat. Let it ride in the back seat and be quiet. Maybe eventually it can package it nicely up and put it in the trunk. But every once in a while, it'll come out. But we don't want to just get it out of the car completely. And that's what I think I tried to do most of my life, is just try to get it away from me, get it out of the car. And I put all my energy into getting grief out of the car, that I never actually let it be there, let myself process it, let it just be there, let the sadness stay. There was nothing wrong with it, and that's what we have to do with grief, is we have to allow it. We have to allow it to be with us. Grief makes us uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to grieve, and it's really uncomfortable for others when we're grieving, right? When someone is grieving, my most popular TikTok, I wouldn't say it went viral, but I had thousands and thousands of views on it, was what to say to someone who's grieving. And the answer is, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's the answer. We can't make it better. We can't make them feel better. There's no solution to this problem. All we can do is hold space for them. And by holding space, I mean allowing them to be witnessed in their grief. And that's it. Just hold space. So when you're listening to someone who's sad and grieving, you don't have to have the answer. You don't have to say something to make them feel better. You don't have to tell them time is going to make it better. We don't fall into the coping strategies. I call them brats, which is, stay busy, replace the loss, grieve alone, time heals. stay strong for others. We learn these things from our parents, these coping strategies, stay busy, go outside and play, or replace the loss. We'll get you a new one. We'll get you a new one on Sunday. Don't worry. It's no big deal. We'll get you a new one. Grieve alone. Go to your room if you're going to cry. Time heals. Don't worry. It'll get better with time. We hear that one all the time. Replace the loss is another one. We know there's more fish in the sea. Stay strong for others. That one is bullshit. Like mostly boys hear that, now you're the man of the house. You're going to have to be strong for your mom. Those coping strategies don't work. The only thing that helps with grief is to allow it to be a passenger in your car forever. And that way I call it the structure, and it's the structure that holds the love that has nowhere to go. It's the home for love of the thing that you lost. And we want that love to have a place to go. And so if you can kind of think of grief as this thing that's going to hold, it's like a placeholder for that love, then maybe you can understand that this is just something that is part of my human experience. This is part of being alive. This is part of being human. If we love, we will lose. And that comes to another thing that we do when someone is grieving around us, wanting us to make that person feel better. We try to say things that we think could be helpful, like, at least he's not in pain anymore. At least, you can have children. Anything that comes after at least is wrong. Just never start a sentence with the words at least. You also don't want to ask the person who's grieving what you can do to help. Let me know what I can do to help. Because first of all, they're not going to tell you what they need, because they're grieving, and first of all, they probably don't know what they need. And we have been so conditioned to understand that our sadness makes other people uncomfortable that we're not going to reach out. Generally, we don't reach out when we're really sad to our people and say, hey, can you bring me? I mean, some people do, but can you do this thing for me? It'll make me feel better. Generally, people that are grieving won't do that. Don't ever say, keep me posted. Keep you posted on what? It's just, it feels good to say it. I mean, it feels like you're caring. It feels like I'm giving you this opportunity, to reach out to me, but it's not helpful. So yeah, don't search for a way to make them feel better. Don't be afraid to talk about their loss to them. Like, don't be afraid to say that person's name. If somebody lost their child, don't let the child go away because it's uncomfortable, or you think you're going to make them sad by talking about it. They might cry, but that's not because you mentioned their child's name. The sadness is already there. They don't want their child to go away forever. Or their parent or whatever they lost. They want that person or dog or whatever to stay present with them always. So don't be afraid to talk about that. Yeah, they want it. They want to hear the name. You're not going to make them sad by talking about it. And then trust them. If they don't want to talk about it, they'll tell you, I don't want to talk about that. If you have any questions about grief, if you have any ideas or anything that you want to share with me, please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. You can follow me at my website, susieruth.com. And you can ask me any questions. And if I don't know the answers, I would like to do the research to find the answers. Thank you for listening. I hope you're subscribed to my channel, and I will talk to you next week.